So my goal for this video is to give you the answers you've finally been looking for to be able to be confident and feel confident when talking to anybody. Because here's a problem that I always had in school. I was so unconfident in myself every single time that I talked to someone. And because of this, they thought that I disliked them, which caused them to repel away. They didn't want to talk to me. But in reality, it was my unconfidence holding me back. I remember this one time in seventh grade. This was like the first time I actually found a girl attractive, right? And I was sitting in this history class, right? I'm in this classroom. I sat on the right side of the classroom, and this girl, she would sit in front of me. So we would talk about group work. She would talk to me about the class. But every single time she turned behind me and she spoke to me, I would get so nervous and be unconfident myself. This was a generally like pretty popular and attractive girl in the school. So every time she would turn to me, I'd be overthinking my appearance. I'd get super red. I would have no idea what to say. And because I was so unconfident, I didn't say much to this lady. I didn't say much to this woman that I thought she was attractive. We would have some conversations here and there, but it would be very dry. I would never smile because I didn't have the confidence to. I didn't ask her any personal questions much about her. I didn't really get to know her because my confidence was just so low. I was super unconfident. And this went by for a few months until one day something happened. A friend of her asks, "Hey, who do you usually talk to?" So a mutual friend of hers is asking this girl that I thought was attractive. She's asking her, "Who do you usually talk to for group work? Who's usually a partner?" And this girl that I found really attractive, she was just like, "Oh, I usually talk to JJ, but I feel like he hates me because he doesn't talk to me much." And in this moment, I realized it wasn't because I hated this girl. I didn't dislike this girl. I genuinely thought she was extremely attractive. I tried to get to know her. But because I was so unconfident and because my confidence didn't allow me to express and communicate with her, she thought I actually hated her and disliked her. And in this moment, I realized I needed to fix this because there were going to be so many future people that I meet. I knew that if I couldn't fix this, I told myself, I knew if I couldn't fix this, there's going to be so many other people that I'm going to meet. And because of my unconfidence holding me back, they're going to think that I dislike them, that I want nothing to do with them. When in reality, it's my lack of confidence, me being unconfident, holding back and expressing myself. So this caused me to do a bunch of research. I really dived deep into what makes a person confident, what can make me confident. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you 3 principles that are going to make you actually confident when talking to anyone. These aren't going to be just really generic tips like, oh, be positive, smile, be yourself, be really interested in the person. There's actually lots of fluff out there. There's lots of advice that doesn't work on how to be confident. But these tips that I'm going to give you, these are actually going to make you feel more confident. And anyone that you're talking to, they're going to think to themselves, this guy, he is really confident. I can tell he's just being himself. He's not worried about impressing anybody else. So the first tip, and a really important tip that I can give you, is find something more to care about. Now, you might be confused on what I'm talking about, but a story for me to tell you on how this works is when I was in seventh grade, this was the most awkward time that I ever was. So in seventh grade, right, I was meeting so many people in class, but I was really awkward. People stayed away from me. I was so shy. My confidence was really low. Now that I look back on this, my life during this time consisted of just school, which I already hated, playing video games, and eating junk food. That's all my life was. That's all my life consisted of. Okay. Now, this all changed. Okay. Me being unconfident and awkward when meeting new people, this changed when I turned into eighth grade. When I went into the eighth grade, this all changed because this is when I started getting into sports. Okay. When I was in seventh grade, I realized that the most popular and attractive guys that were able to socialize, they played sports, they were into fitness. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get myself into sports and fitness. I don't have to invent anything new. I just have to follow what works. So I started getting into soccer, okay? I fell in love with the sport. So I started playing every single day. I was training, I was playing FIFA, which is like the online soccer game. And this completely changed my life. Once I started investing myself into this, right? Once I went into the eighth grade, I started joining the team, okay? I joined the soccer team. And this training that we were doing, we had practices, we had team meetings, and this completely changed me, okay? Because the trainings were so rigorous, I kept falling in love with the sport, and all I cared about was improving my game and impressing the coach so I could make the starting 11, basically start every single game, right? Those were the only two things that I care about the summer before going into eighth grade. After being obsessed with this during the summer before eighth grade, as I went into eighth grade, we had our games, I would see my teammates and everything. And all I was thinking about was these games, training. I was just obsessed about the sport. And then when I went to eighth grade, I noticed I started meeting lots of people. And then I realized I started talking to a bunch of people. I didn't really care about if these people would like me. I didn't care about if these social situations went fine. And then I realized I started talking to more girls. I started realizing that I was able to have conversations with them, what I was doing. And now that I look back at this now, I realized because I was so obsessed about training, winning games, winning trophies, improving my game to make the starting 11, that took so much pressure off of me wanting to get people to like them, finding friends. That took so much pressure off of this, which is what I didn't have in the seventh grade. Because focusing on something, having something purposeful, this training, this sport, the team winning, that's all I ever cared about. I didn't care if somebody that I met didn't like me because there was something always to look forward to. Imagine you yourself right now. Imagine you're awkward right now, which you probably are. You're probably struggling with social skills. Imagine if you had an MMA fight tonight. You had to fight someone with the same fighting skill level as you did tonight. There's a chance of dying. You probably wouldn't care if you had to meet someone new at the store, someone new at school, because you have something more important to care about, which is exactly why I know this works. And my best tip for you, probably one of the best things that you can start doing to have something to care about, is fitness. Fitness is literally something that you can start caring about. That is going to, it's first, it's going to get you in shape. Two, it's going to make your appearance better. And three, you're going to automatically make friends because of your teammates. Now you might be thinking, oh, okay, like, how do I get in? I'm scared to join a team. I'm scared to join a certain sport. That's fine. As long as you get into fitness, go into the gym, get in really good shape. This isn't a fitness channel. I could tell you how to do it, but get in really good shape. And once you start getting in shape, once you're finally in good shape, pick a sport. And this is extremely going to help you, especially if you're in school. Nothing else you're going to care about rather than improving your game and these sports is going to matter. And this will take so much pressure off of your conversations that you think are scary. My second tip for you is to improve your looks as much as you can. Now you might be thinking right now, oh, but there's so many unattractive people who are able to have conversations and have friends, and I 100% agree. I personally know some of the most the most unconventionally unattractive people who have so much charisma, okay? But this is extremely hard for introverts like me and you to pull off because these unattractive people that have charisma, they're either coming from a wealthy family, they're naturally extroverted, they have lots of good things going on. So we want to take this from a different approach, okay? This is more of an approach that I took, which is most likely going to help you. But I remember this one time, many times actually, where people make fun of my looks, okay? So part of the reason why I was so awkward and unconfident in myself was because of my appearance. Every single person in school would always mention something about my ears, okay? I have big ears, by the way. I'm gonna point that out there. They don't look huge because of my hair. But anyways, every single person would bring it up. Oh, JJ's ears are big, they called me Dumbo and everything. That's a problem that I always had, okay? Because I always experienced this, I thought it was true. I'm like, if every single person is saying it, it must be true, right? And so, I started feeling bad about myself. I started thinking I was ugly. And I remember even like multiple times, I remember asking my mom, like, oh, mom, are my ears big or are they just lying? And she's my mom, so she's gonna cope and say, oh, honey, no, your ears aren't big. You're beautiful the way you are. But I was just like, no, she has to be coping, right? And it wasn't until COVID 2020 where I started growing my hair out, okay? Because I was bullying everything, because I realized that, dude, I need to improve on my looks. I started getting into looks magazines. I started getting into ways to make me more attractive, right? And during this COVID lockdown, I started really investigating what makes someone attractive. I started growing out my hair, okay? And once I grew out my hair, I noticed that my ears weren't visibly like protruding. They weren't visible in pictures. I couldn't see them in the mirror. And I felt really good about myself because I realized all my life people were making fun of my ears. If they're not showing, then no one's going to say anything. I'm hiding my insecurities. And because of this allowed me to talk to more people. I wasn't thinking about it in my mind. And there's gonna people be saying, "Oh, just embrace your insecurities. Just let it show out." And here's the thing: you can do all of that, but people are always going to see an ugly flaw in you. Insecurities, people are always going to see. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because insecurities that you have, whether that's your height, your ears, whatever, fix them as much as possible. Because right now you're probably thinking in your mind, oh, looks don't matter. They don't matter as much. They do matter. Because in my experience, changing and improving appearance has probably been one of the biggest confidence boosters ever. Because of my hair. Apparently, this is like a really attractive hairstyle to women. Women nowadays like longer hair. But every time I go, now that I grew it out, I realize and get positive reinforcement thinking, my ears aren't showing, my ears aren't as protruding, people aren't going to mention it, people aren't going to think of it as ugly because they can't see it. And two, I've gotten lots of compliments on my hair. Every time I talk to a stranger, I know they might compliment my hair. That makes me feel good. So this positive reinforcement of people complimenting your attractiveness is extremely helpful. So any insecurities, anything that you don't like about yourself, improve your looks. Looks matter 100%. They're not everything, but they matter 100%. The third thing, and the most important thing, is for you to endure suffering in hard times. I want you to suffer. Now, this might sound really weird. I'm not telling you to harm yourself. I'm not telling you to go really hurt yourself out there, but I started thinking about this. I saw this quote online, and it basically said, the hardest times create the strongest men. And I saw that. I wasn't sure why it stuck with me, right? I had no idea why this quote kept appearing in my mind. But then I started thinking about it. I realized, okay, who are the most confident people that I know? Out of all the people in the world, who are the most confident people that I've ever met? And it came to me that the most confident people that I've ever met in my life are veterans and ex-military people. People who have basically served in some sort of army, right? And I realized what makes them so confident. In my experience, my mom's friend's husband was my boss, right? And he was so confident, okay? He would just say everything on his mind. He was a leader. He would even kind of make fun of me sometimes, even as a joke. But I'm just like, what makes him so confident? And I was just thinking, these guys who are going into the military, these guys who have served in the army, they have literally suffered. They have literally been in physical combat. They've literally been hands on the ground dealing with so much pressure. And they come into a conversation unfazed. Why? Because they literally went through this suffering. They literally went through all this pressure, all this physical tension. And since they went through that suffering and when they realized it, that boosts their ego so much. They think to themselves, bro, I literally went through this suffering. I was literally starving. I was sleep deprived. I was on the floor in combat. So why am I going to be scared of some conversation? Why am I going to be scared of a conversation with someone that doesn't even do anything all day, who just plays video games and eat junk food? Imagine if you served in the military and if you went through that suffering. Would you be still scared of these people? You wouldn't be. So the reason why I want you to endure suffering and be grateful of hard times is because these hard times and these experiences will grow you, especially as a man. So what do I mean by this? This suffering of you trying to be confident and work on your social skills, it sucks right now. But once you realize that you're literally putting yourself out there, practicing your conversations, working on that confidence, once you get to a certain place where you start practicing and you made some progress, you're going to think to yourself, you know what? Dude, I was really shy one time. I was so shy that I couldn't even look people in the eye. Now I'm able to talk, able to at least not be awkward when talking to strangers. That makes me feel good about myself. I came a long way. So this experience, right, this suffering that you're feeling right now, it's going to build you up as a man, which is why as we get older, we become more confident. But endure suffering because this is going to give you experience and it's going to make you realize I went through this. There's no reason to be scared of a conversation. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.